log in. Let me know that you can see me. Let me know that you can hear me. I'm going to go check in all the places to make sure I am indeed live. Okay, it looks like I am working in Facebook. I'm gonna go check YouTube. Looks like it is working on YouTube as well. Super, excellent. And we have commenters and the baby is being quiet. So we are all set. Awesome. Our last Monday musings for 2020. How did that happen? We started these, I guess, a while ago. I don't know, June. Did I start on before June? I have no idea. But here we are, last one, right? I'm not making that up. Yeah, last one for the year. It's exciting. I look in his crate every time he moves. That's pretty normal. Okay, so tonight we are talking about this communication piece between instructors and students and instructors, and how to go about some of those awkward conversations that maybe we're avoiding because of the dynamics of agility culture in general. At least I feel this, so you can tell me if you agree, that everyone has to be friends. And so it can sometimes blur those lines of professionalism. Whereas in any other context, neither party would have problems. But in the context of agility, you kind of hold back from having these conversations. So let me know if that's maybe part of it. And while you're here, also maybe if there's a topic that you do hold back from bringing up with your instructor, if you feel comfortable and safe sharing, share that with me and I can maybe talk on those specific conversations specifically. So that's kind of what we're going to cover tonight, is just how to create just a little bit more transparency and comfort and safe space between the instructor and the students and vice versa. Sound good? I'm just going to grab because there's a delay. If anyone's making any comments, they're not showing up. So I want to be sure I'm not missing anything. All right. Okay, now they're coming up. So there's quite a delay. Okay. So first, let's just say there is a time and a place to have conversations about different things. All right, so I'm going to grab this comment. Not as blurred lines in agility as you did feel in the horse world. So that's actually really interesting, because I wonder if it would be opposite had your first experiences been with dogs and agility, and you know what I mean? Because I'm sure it's everywhere. But I find that especially in the sport of dog agility, and maybe it's similar or different, I don't know how it is in horse events, but there aren't a lot of sports out there where the coach or the instructor is competing alongside the students, right? It certainly doesn't happen in sports, right? Like football and basketball and gymnastics, and right, there's usually a separation of like power when we're talking about those other sports, those non-doggy sports. But in agility or dog sports in general, everyone's your friend. You're going to see them on the weekend. Like there's a lot of different hats you can wear with one client. Right? It can get tricky if there aren't clear lines and clear boundaries. At least, and who knows, I might have struggled more with these than others are struggling. So first, time and place for these conversations. So some conversations can't wait, right? Maybe it has to do with advocating for your dog because you don't feel comfortable doing what the instructor's talking about or wanting you to do. And it's one thing to say, I don't feel comfortable doing that right now. Do you have another solution? That's one thing. That can be processed and attended to right on the spot. What can't be processed and attended to right on the spot is saying, I don't feel comfortable. I'm not doing that right now. I need you to explain to me why I'm even here. Like there's two different ways to go about some things, right? Some ways we can address them immediately. Some things need to be left for later. So if it is something that is quick and easy, kind of pertains to the lesson, remember, if you're out there in front of us and we're teaching, and you're out there and you're in front of the instructor and they're trying to teach you something, they only have this long with you right in front of them. So if your question or something that you need to advocate for yourself or your dog can be kind of handled within that short time frame, then open that door. Okay? Also, on the side of the instructor, you have to have that boundary of labeling these things. So if you get a request right out there on the floor, and you're wanting to be training this one thing, and you just got whiplash from the student's request, it's up to you to either walk through that door or to politely close the door. Okay? My stock phrase was send me an email. It just saves a ton of time, because if it wasn't an answer that I could give right then and immediate, and it would be done in 10 seconds, I needed to move it, right? Either because I should be going to the bathroom, I should be walking my dog, I should be eating something, I should be drinking something, I should be getting ready for the next class, I should be starting the next class. That was actually the number one thing. All those other things, I don't even remember them happening. Usually I needed to start the next class. So if it's not something you can answer in 10 seconds or less, send me an email. Because if it's important to that student, they will. If it's really something that they want to address and they want your opinion on, or they need your opinion on, they will send that email. Okay, so that's quick and easy, right? That doesn't always, that doesn't cover the hard stuff, but it at least gives you an ability to set a boundary for your time, right? Especially if their class time is over. I also, and so that could be maybe a way to do it if maybe they are out on the floor with you and it's their training turn. Send me an email about that, okay? Or if you're in passing, kind of between classes or after class or before class, right? It just gives you a little bit of a boundary to go, no, these are my protected minutes before and after class. And even if you, it's up to you if you want to take the time to answer it right then or answer it in an email. Okay, everyone likes that idea. Yes, so I agree that also needs to kind of be in an instructor's welcome letter. We're going to get a little bit to that as well. That the expectation is that I will answer emails or I won't answer emails, because some instructors might not want emails, right? Obviously, if you don't want emails, don't tell them to email you, but it is a trade-off, right? You as the instructor do get to set your boundaries around your time. Another thing that you on that route of expectations with the emails is when I was teaching full time in person, I would only I would limit myself to 1 hour on the computer every morning before I would leave to teach. And so that meant that it might be 2 or 3 days before I could get to someone's email. And so sometimes I would see the person at class before I had answered their email. And that can also be like a nagging thing. So then, I used auto replies. And it's fine if instructors don't like emails, then they're probably taking the time to answer the questions in class, or maybe they have that time, right? Because it's up to everyone. It's each instructor needs to just have their boundaries and let those boundaries be known. And so the students can know what to expect. It could also be a phone call. I never, ever told a student, call me, but is anyone surprised by that? I'm just not a talkie on the phone kind of person. It's really hard for me to focus on the phone. Just ask Graham. He hates talk. Like, thank goodness we don't have to talk on the phone with each other anymore, because I don't listen. It's very hard for me. So it's so much easier for you to send me an email, because you will get my undivided attention on an email. But that's me. Some instructors are going to be like, yeah, call me or text me or Facebook, like whatever. They're going to say, yeah, just, send that over to me. More and more great ideas for instructors. I had a students only group, right? So then if they had a question, they could ask it, and maybe a student knew the answer. Like, when is such and such payment due? If a student knows, or even the Facebook group, you could have all of those little questions, right? That kind of take time to answer, but don't need to be like answered by you. You could have all of that information in a Facebook group for your students. And then if they have a small question like that and they ask it, another student's probably going to answer it for you. So you can kind of use the everyone's friends thing to your advantage. You can build up a community, and some of those questions get answered really easily without any time spent on your part. Right? So everyone's going to have their preference. Okay. I tried really hard to avoid lengthy conversations during classes or between classes. Okay. I would try really, really hard to politely wrap it up and get it sent to another time, especially if it was a topic of emotion. Okay? Because we all know we have those moments when we're trying to advocate for ourselves, when we're trying to advocate for our dogs. We have those emotional moments, or we're struggling with something as a student and we just need a little help, but we don't really know how to ask for that help. So if it's an emotional conversation, I'm going to just throw it out there that your instructor doesn't want to have it during class or between classes. I'm sure there are exceptions to this rule, but for me, it would completely derail the rest of the day. Because then I would be sucked into that one specific thing. Okay. And I also witnessed one time I was teaching with a group of instructors, and a student left one of the sessions, and at the end of the session went to an instructor and just told her everything that she did wrong teaching her. And it was just poor timing, I think, because it was at the end of the weekend. She's got another session she's got to go teach, and it was just poor timing, right? There could have been a better time and a better place for those kind of conversations. All right. So time and place matters. Okay. And especially if you are out there on the course with your dog, that is not the time to have an emotional conversation. Okay. So at least for the sake of your dog, save it. You know, even if it's, I have had sit down coffee meetings with clients because it was a bigger issue to tackle over email. And I just said how I hate talking on the phone. So the student and I, we've gone to lunch or we've grabbed coffee. So there could be tons of ways around it depending on your boundaries. That I think most people would be open to if they knew those avenues were available. Okay. And I think that was kind of the point of the comment a little while ago about students don't know email is an option. Okay. So as instructors, we do need to be clear about what are your expectations, what is available to your students. And that can include between classes, before classes, after classes, the days in between classes. Like, what can your students expect from you? You know, do they have a Facebook group? Do you want emails? Is texting you okay? And be super clear around when texting you is okay, right? Because I mean, my phone it stops making noise at a certain time, but also after a certain time, I'll probably just ignore any text or Facebook messages. I try to have business hours in my head, even if I get something outside of business hours, that is a boundary on myself that I have to maintain the criteria of. I don't expect the students to not message me outside of business hours, but I do expect them to wait until business hours for a response. Does that make sense? But that expectation has to be made clear in their welcome material and when it changes. So for instance, the auto reply on the email basically said all that. I'm available this time. You can expect a response in 2 or 3 days. You can, for this, go here, for that, go there, and so on and so on. so that the answers to the most common questions were always answered in the auto reply. So that if it was just a silly thing that, oh, I lost the schedule, here's the schedule, here's the link to it. Now you've found it again. Things like that can help the expectation bit. But you got to be clear, and it goes both ways. So when you are bringing in new clients, especially, I would always let them come in and observe my classes. So Nancy particularly had a question about knowing in advance about an instructor's communication style, how they teach, getting a feel for it. I encouraged people to come in and observe our classes because I, as a group instructor, I could be quite loud. I could be quite animated and excited. I could maybe swear a little bit. So I'd always feel a little bad when another instructor of mine, I had other instructors with classes that were coming through my business. So I would always feel a little bad when a new group of, Synergy babies was over there in the corner, and I would just be like, oh, hell yeah, and swearing. And I'm like, oops, sorry. And, but if they came in and observed before then, they got kind of immune to me and desensitized to me and my, the atmosphere that I bring. So that is a great way, is if you are a student wanting to kind of try out a new instructor, I think most instructors are okay with people coming in and observing. At least I was. So bring them on, try to get in and observe before you sign up for a class with them. Okay. The second thing, if possible, and this is really helpful. Oh, thank goodness swearing is allowed. Like, if swearing bugs you, maybe don't request a seminar with me because I'll likely offend you. And I'm really, really sorry about it. I try really hard because the person I live with isn't a fan, and it's amazing that we're together, but whatever. I guess that's just one thing that bothers him about me. Whatever. It's fine. So like, I'm aware of how much I swear, and it's absurd sometimes. Anyways, so if possible, and this can help new students get to know you and you get to know new students, is to schedule evaluations. And I know some facilities have the overflow and ability to schedule evaluations that are free, no cost. I never had that. I didn't have that ability. So I charged for an evaluation. They weren't as long and they didn't cost as much as a private lesson. But it was a nice way to kind of meet and greet a person and kind of get to know, especially if they were not new to sports or training. It was much easier for me to meet with them on an evaluation and get to kind of know them one-to-one, rather than kind of guessing at which class to put them in. So if I could meet with them ahead of time, I'd be like, oh yeah, you're going to do great in this class. Does that work for you? And it also gives you that ability to ask these questions, right? Like, what do you do in this situation? And how do you feel about this? And you can, in an evaluation period, you can kind of discuss your training philosophies together and see if it's going to be the right mesh for you. Okay. So let them observe your classes, schedule evaluations, and we can sort of, when you already have current students, we can use surveys and things, right? We can ask them what they like, what they don't like, what they'd like to see more of, what they'd like to see less of, okay? But the important thing is when you are asking for their opinions, do not give them options that aren't options, right? So if on your survey you're offering them, 24/7 classes, like would you come to a class at 3 a.m.? Because so many of my students would have come to a class at 3 a.m., but it's not an option. It's just not. After about 8:30, like people who used to come learn from me from 7:30 at night to 9 know what I'm like. Like I feel like really badly for those students that used to come for my late classes, especially my late class on Thursday nights after teaching all week. So if 3 a.m. isn't on the table for a class, don't put that on the survey, right? Don't give choices that aren't choices, because then it's a pointless survey, and then they're not going to communicate freely with you in the future. Does that make sense? And that also gives you the ability to set your boundaries. If your survey is a bunch of text boxes, that's just asking for your boundaries to be blown through, because the expectations of the student might be completely opposite of what's realistic for you. So if you do a survey, construct it in a way that you have a specific question and you give the learner 2 or 3 options that are doable for you, right? Just like we do with the animals, right? I'm going to grab this question real quick before we get to the awkward conversations. Dynamics of teaching friends. Do you feel this makes things easier or harder? So I actually felt that it made it harder on the business side of things. I never felt like teaching was difficult. And so I don't think teaching, I don't feel like that's more or less difficult, whether they were my friend or not. I felt like the business admin side of things was more difficult with friends. Okay. And we talked a little bit of it last week, just the things like, can you save me a spot in that seminar? Or can I sign up early for that seminar? Can I sign up early? Things like that. Or, right, it's more difficult. Maybe you're having a Facebook conversation with your friend and they flip the conversation to, oh, hey, when does that seminar open for registration? Well, it's outside business hours. So normally, if I wasn't already talking to you, I wouldn't answer that question. But now I am talking to you, so I have to answer this question. But it's my day off and I'm drinking wine and I don't want to answer this question right now. Those things are more difficult. Okay. Which sometimes if you have a bunch of friends, this is like easy. I don't have a bunch of friends. So it makes it a little bit easier. But if you're getting kind of worn out by all your friends kind of messaging you when you don't want to be working, then you have to have that firm boundary of, hey, you can only email me. So that was kind of one thing that I could use. I would say, if it's not in my inbox, it didn't happen. So if I got texted something, it wouldn't be so bad if I let it go or ignored it, because if it showed up in my inbox, it was business, right? Friends don't email me. Clients email me. Friends text me, or friends Facebook message me, things like that. So you can make it work however you need to make it work. But I think those were the things that were harder with friends, not the teaching. Okay. awkward conversations, like the ones that you don't really want to have, but you need to have, or someone's going to be miserable, right? These are usually it's a misunderstanding. Like we talked a little bit about it last week, but usually it is like a philosophy difference, and maybe there's just a little bit of butting heads, and it needs to be discussed, but it needs to take longer than, you know, the 3 or 5 minutes that you have when you've got the client in front of you. Or maybe it's like a real problem, right? I'm completely drawing blank of what real problems might be, but things like if a student doesn't feel like they are improving, or a student might not feel like you like them, or a student might feel like they aren't getting as much time, or you don't care. Step one is you do have to validate those feelings, because even if their perception is not 100% accurate, their feelings are valid and real. And that is a hard thing. It is a hard thing to swallow that knee-jerk reaction. What do you mean you think I don't like you? That's insane. Of course I like you. That you have to swallow that and go, this person's needs are not being met. I wonder if there's a way I can meet them. Okay? It's a big thing, and it was a hard thing to learn it, but it makes everything so much better. Swallow your knee-jerk reaction and ask, what do you need? And your student will go, I don't know. Because sometimes they don't know what they need. They just know something's missing, right? That they don't feel like they're getting what they know that they need something, but they don't always know what that need is. And now you have to go on a treasure hunt, and you have to find that need. And that's where your experience as an instructor is really going to help, because you've maybe seen this before. Okay, so you have it. Opening that door is a lot easier if you open it with the question, what do you need? Versus, I can't believe you think that way, right? And clearly that's my knee-jerk reaction is, are you kidding me? You think I don't like you? You think, like, don't make it about you. It's not about you. It's not about you, instructors. Okay. So what do you need? And do you have a solution? Because, and this is important, students, that if you have a problem that you want to address with your instructor, if you bring a potential solution to the table, that also makes things a little bit easier, because it's a potential solution and not a demand, right? So if you have a problem and you maybe are emailing the problem, or even just talking face-to-face about the problem, and you get, and I feel like this could be a way forward for me. Well, now you've offered a solution to the instructor, and now the instructor can say, yes, that fits within my boundaries, or no, that doesn't fit within my boundaries. And both answers are okay. Instructors don't have to bend over backwards to make every student thrive, right? Because that's not going to happen. Some instructors, some classes, some situations are not going to be for some students. But I think there could be more give and take than there sometimes feels. Um, he or she who asks the questions has the power, right? So if you stick to questions, what do you need? Can you offer a solution? What can I do for you? Right? Because now you are working together with the student versus this is how it's going to be, deal or leave, right? But also if that's all you can do, like this is it, if you don't like it, leave, you can have that policy. But be upfront about it. Don't try to beat around the bush about it. Okay, good. Someone says it's thought-provoking and helpful. So it's good. Sometimes I feel like I'm just ranting about things. So I want to make sure that it's at least useful information. Okay. So back to that clarity piece. If you get asked, what do you need? This is your opportunity. Be clear. Tell that person what you need. Do you need more of this? Do you need more of that? Do you need a different class? Do you need a different time? Do you need different classmates? Does your dog it's not working out in this environment with these dogs? Sometimes some dogs didn't belong in the same class together and they needed to be separated. So clarity on both sides. And it goes back to now on the instructor side, really being clear with your own boundaries. Because if you ask the student, what do you need? And they tell you what they need, you need to be able to know if you can do that or not. And if you don't have these clear boundaries to begin with, you won't know if you can change, or you won't know if you want to change. Okay, so you have to stick to that criteria for each student. So you can't say, yes, I'll do that for this student. And then the next student comes in like, well, you gave them that. You have to be able to spread the rules fairly, and rules, boundaries, like whatever you want to call them. They're in my head, some things were non-negotiable, period. This is how it is. This is how it has to be to maintain sanity, or I will quit. Some things were flexible. Some things were red flags. If a student does this, we probably don't need to be working together. You can have those items, but you have to know what they are to be able to have the conversation with the student. Okay. So a lot of times I feel like as the instructor, I know I did for a long time, I didn't have any of these ideas. There were no policies. There was no, because when you start, you've got like 4 students and no one cares. I mean, I remember the very first class I taught, I was teaching 2 classes a week and they each had 3 dogs each. So and they were probably all the same people. So I had like 5 unique students of my own. There were no boundaries. There were no policies. We were all best friends. We could do whatever because I could have that flexibility. They could have, do you know how much of me you get when I'm only sharing it with 5 people? But then 5 turned into 15, turned into 30, turned into 100, turned into 250. Eek. Now there's very little of me to go around. So you have to be clear about what's available. As a student, I remind myself that I'm there to learn, not to be liked, and that has helped me so much. So that's also fair, that you can look at agility in any way you want. Do you care if your plumber likes you? Right? Or do you care if you like your plumber or not? Not if they fix the sink. right? So you can look at it that way, but you can also look at it as a way of it's a little bit more personal than your plumber. Like I just met with a personal trainer online. We're going to do online workouts and lessons and things like that. And when I met with her, I was open to the fact of, if I don't mesh with this person, am I going to do the workout? Am I going to film things for her? Am I going to put in the effort to meet with her every couple of weeks online? Same thing with my mindset coach, Dr. Catherine. We hit it off the moment I met her. And it's like we've known each other for almost 6 years now, and it feels like 16. We just boom. If that hadn't happened, I wouldn't have put in the effort. So it very much depends on your own take and why you're doing that class. So for sure, if you can turn that social thing off, that social side off, and just, I'm here to learn, this is the best person to learn from, absolutely, you can go that route. But I would argue that most clients aren't going that route. They want to have that more personal relationship. They want to at least feel like you care about their dog, I think, in general. Totally glaring generalizations when I talk about these things. Okay? So those awkward questions, those awkward conversations that you've maybe been avoiding, they've got to happen. And I think everyone will be happier once you have them. So instructors, what you are going to leave here to do is you are going to maybe start jotting down some of these boundaries and some of these expectations, and some stock phrases like send me an email, right? That puts it over in this box. You can forget about it until it shows up in your inbox, and then you can address it. Or this is really kind of outside the scope of this class. Can we book a private lesson? That was the other one. Because and of course it's going to be different for everyone, but when I was teaching, I would have my normal classes Monday through Thursday. And then if it was a weekend available at the facility and I was also not trialing, I might do private lessons one of the days of the weekends. So probably like once or twice a month, I could offer just 6 or 8 private lessons in a day and get caught up on those things. So it might have been, if it's not something that send me an email could cover, hey, we really don't have time to go over that just now. Can we maybe think about booking a private lesson? That's another great one. So set out those boundaries of, when do you want questions? Do you want them in your inboxes? Do you want them on the class? Or do you want people to book time with you and pay for that time, right? You're going to maybe put something out there, an auto reply about when you're available for questions. You're maybe going to make a Facebook group with all the relevant information that they need, the class schedule, the payment schedule, all the silly little questions. And you guys know what I'm talking about. The questions where you immediately go, all they had to do was go to this link. If you find yourself rolling your eyes when you read an email, that is an auto reply, okay? Because it's one of those things where it's like, this didn't need to be an email, right? But it did. They needed it. The student, it's not up to you to decide how much effort they put into it. They sent you an email. They deserve a response, but the response might be an auto reply with the relevant information, right? So this is to help everyone's sanity, okay? You're going to have clear boundaries about, not clear boundaries, clear something written somewhere. If you have a website, putting it on the website is great. Doesn't guarantee that they'll read it, but you can at least link to it in every welcome note. It can be, every new class they sign up. It can be in the waiver that they sign. You can try and get it, but have your teaching philosophy and your goals as an instructor widely available to your students, so that when they sign up for a class, they're like, all right, she means business. Okay, they want these things from you, right? Including when to show up, where to crate, where to park, blah, all of those things. Because the more clear the expectations are, the easier it is for them to do what you would like to see. But if it's just, classes at 7, show up. When they show up at 7:02, you can't be annoyed about it. So your instructors are going to take some time to make these things available. Like if you feel that you're getting annoyed about something, it needs to be a boundary that your students are aware of. If they're not aware of it, you can't correct them for it, right? If they're aware of it, but you break your criteria on it, of course they're going to break their criteria, right? So, but they can't be held responsible for behaviors they don't know about, okay? And then students, offer up some opinions to your instructors. Ask them, are you available for some feedback? Remember, he or she who asks the questions holds the power. Because if you say, just think of the difference. If you as a student just email your instructor out of the blue, no warning, this huge email about how you're having a horrible time, it might not be well received on the other side. But if you first say, are you available to talk about my experience as your student? They can say yes or no. If they say no, well, then you're going to probably find a new instructor, right? If they're not available to talk about your experience. But they're probably going to say, well, of course, what do you need? It's just a whole different way of looking at it. Okay, comments. As a new agility student, I was very confused when my instructor suggested a private lesson. I thought, I'm paying for classes and working hard. Why is she wanting me to do private lessons too? Now, of course, I get it completely, but newbies, it can be confusing. Absolutely. So it's a different skill to coach those and teach those that are not new to the sport or not new to dog training, as opposed to raising a whole new group of people in dog sports and dog training. So absolutely, if you are training brand new people, you have to work extra hard to explain why. Everything needs a why. And we talked a lot about that last week. So if you missed that one, go back and listen to that. But that is a really good point. As a student, it is frustrating when another student interjects a question during your turn and the instructor acknowledges and answers it rather than deferring the question until that student's turn. So this is, like I said, dear instructor, do you have time to discuss my experience in your class? And then go from there, because my rule, if this is helpful to instructors, is if I had a student that I was working with, they could ask questions. I would try to, if it was a general question, I would ask them to hold it between turns. But if it was a question specifically about their feedback of that other student, I would let them ask it, And then I would choose to either pause that student's time and answer it, or say, ask me again when they're done. And so that also is a boundary on the part of the instructor. And I would have to pull it out, pause that person's time, be like, look, I'm not taking anything away from you, but their question is good, and I think you want to hear it. But I would also only do that if I thought that dog could handle it too, right? So that you have to know. But in general, it would be an expectation that they would hold questions between dogs. So as an instructor, you have to have that kind of rule, and it's easy to train. You're working with a student, someone else asks a question, you don't even have to look at them. You just say, ask me between dogs. Ask me when they're done. And if it was important, they will be there. My question. And if it wasn't, they'll let it go. Okay, but if the instructor doesn't know that that's happening, right? Because we're human too. The instructor might not even be aware of it. They might just be answering questions. Like, yeah, and boom. And they don't even realize that they are getting distracted from the team that's in front of them. So find a way to bring it up. I love these questions. These are great questions. Am I, as a student, being an asshole by not loving my in-person instructors, running my dogs to try to show me things that I might be struggling with? Would you see me as making that as a boundary, as something that would likely hinder progress? Not at all. And I see that someone else also replied to you. Having opinions doesn't make you an asshole. Okay, let's just put it out there. So because it to me, it doesn't help you to see me do it with your dog, right? I'm very careful about those types of things. So I would just oh my God, I'm going to get emails in the next week about, Megan, all of my students have emailed me saying, do you have time to discuss my experience? But so maybe change up the wording. Can we have 5 or 6 different stock emails for students to say when they want to have a conversation with their instructors? Because I feel like all the instructors are going to be seeking me out and wanting my head on a pitchfork. But that for one, especially if it's not helping you, I would say something. Hey, this isn't really how I learn best. Are there any other options? Is there a different class? Do you think, can we do this? Would a private lesson help? So as a student, also start thinking of solutions that might work for you, because also sometimes, and I remember this, I don't have all the answers, right? I am banking off of the pretty deep amount of experience I have teaching, but sometimes instructors are doing it the way that they're doing it because they don't know how else to do it, right? We all start somewhere. And, some instructors are going to have a wider depth of experience with breeds and people and things like that. So if your instructor keeps going to that, it's probably because that's what's worked for them in the past, and it's working with their other students. And then it's not working so much with you. And so if you can offer an alternative behavior, right? If you can offer your instructor something else that might work better, they might also be like, oh my gosh, that's brilliant. Why didn't I think of that? And now they're going to start teaching differently from there on. So it really, if your instructor is open-minded and has more of a growth mindset than a fixed mindset, having these conversations with other dog trainers, right? This is the good part, is that we're all dog trainers and that we're all learning and growing. So I kind of liked it when my students brought something else to the table, because then I could think about it and go, you know what? Yeah, you're right. That's probably going to work better. Let's try it. Or we can try it, but I really don't think this is going to work, right? So you gotta just ask. And it's scary, but it gets easier. My teacher would wait until class was over to ask if we had questions. Well, that was always the kiss of death for me, because then I would never get to leave. So, and I would be like, oh, well, class was supposed to end 15 minutes ago, so question time's over. Things like that. Yeah. All right. Any last questions? Helpful, not helpful? Yeah, I think that is certainly one way to get more student involvement in your classes, is by asking them, do you have any ideas? What do you think? Remember, he or she who asks the questions holds the power. So the more curious you get about things, I think the further along you get. Kiss of death. Like, I am not kidding. Please, somebody who took in-person classes from me, confirm this story. If I said, are any questions? Oof. It was bad. It was a bad thing. Specifically seminar situation. Yeah, see? This person knows. We would keep her there all night. And remember, I don't do well past about 8:30 or 9. But I've had some late nights teaching agility. Seminar situation, something specific about the seminar situation. It's a whole nother kettle of fish, isn't it? I can talk a little bit about seminars while I wait. Wait for a more specific question. I'm reading these comments too. Can't read and talk at the same time. So seminars in general, if you're wondering like if you should sign up for a specific seminar, I think the weight in that question lies in who has hired them. Okay. Seminars are difficult because the seminar presenter doesn't know you or your dog. So I do think with the seminar, you have to kind of go at it with the I don't have to like my plumber attitude. At least, oh good, Megan has not made me cry. Whew. Sometimes I make people cry. I think I have a couple of times. But in general, I try to avoid crying at all costs, because then I'll cry and then it's just, ugh. Okay. So seminars, if your instructor that you know and love and trust and have a great relationship with hires someone to come to their facility and teach, it's probably a good thing. Okay. So if your instructor hires someone, you're probably safe. Probably, right? You don't have to love your plumber. Yeah, that's right. But with a seminar presenter, that's kind of how I feel sometimes. If you've not been to them before, you want to test them out, you've probably paid a lot of money, so you need to try and get as much of it as you can out of it, knowing that you might just trash it all as soon as you leave and never come back again. You're allowed to hate learning from someone. I paid a lot of money for a seminar a long time ago with two fantastic competitors. Traveled a long way to get there. I love their handling styles. I love their philosophy. One of them was a fantastic teacher, and one of them was a so-so teacher. It's fine. But I still got a lot from both of them. I just knew that if I had the opportunity to learn from them again, which one I would choose and which one I would skip. Okay. But if there's just this random person that you don't know bringing in this other random person that you don't know, well, then you got to like ask around for some references. That's when you should ask your instructor, what do you think of? And insert the seminar presenter's name. And most of the time they'll tell you. They'll at least tell you about their experience. What I would do is I would talk about my experience with that person, if I had one, and I would try to offer, I think you'll like this about them, or I don't think you'll like this about them, if I knew that presenter well enough and that client well enough. A lot of people do this, try not to do a working spot without auditing first. So they would audit the first year the person came, and then they would do a working spot the next year. I had a lot of students do that as well when I was bringing in a ton of seminar presenters. They would audit the first year and do a working spot the next year. Just because, yeah, you got to be cautious, especially, I mean, it's a lot of money usually for seminars. Anything interesting from the dogs was saying. I'm floored with how many amazing agility instructors are out there that don't understand dog behavior. There's something that I'm definitely going to be asking before doing more seminars. Yeah. So agility, I've said this for a long time. Agility instructors are not necessarily dog trainers, because agility teaching tricks is way easier than teaching like in knowing behavior. So that is going to be, but also keep in mind, and this is maybe a secret no one, the agility instructors don't want me to know or want me to out. At least I've had this feeling, is that we know it, or maybe they do know about dog behavior, but they don't want to address it. It's a different, skill set. It's a different part of the brain. It's more exhausting. I'm always more tired after a problem-solving day or a young dog day where I've had to do a lot of dog training and not a lot of agility teaching. So it's sometimes, it's really difficult in a seminar situation as well, right? Because if it's a coursework seminar, for instance, and it was advertised as a coursework seminar, and you've got 10 people there and 10 auditors, so you've got 20 people there expecting to see coursework, and then you get a couple of dogs that need dog training. Well, you do sort of have this pressure, whether it's real or perceived, to do agility even with those two dogs, right? Sometimes it's pressure from the other people, like they don't want to watch dog training. Sometimes it's pressure from that client, that student. Well, I came here to run a course. Well, no, you need dog training. So again, seminars can just be tricky in general. So, try your best. Yeah, so it's not a perfect thing, but I do think that I think that's maybe something to suggest to seminar hosts, that while they're like after the working spots fill, can you at least post the breeds because then you might be more or less interested in coming to audit. So that's something to suggest to seminar hosts as well. Absolutely. I think and it kind of has with my seminar topics, like I used to when I'm going away to teach seminars. My seminar topics used to be really relaxed and, oh yeah, it can be any levels, I'll accommodate whatever. But now my seminar contract has very specific seminar topics. This is who that seminar is for. This is what you should expect. This is what I'm going to do during this seminar. So yes, I've gotten a lot more clear in what I will teach. And of course, I'm going to do what the team needs from me on the day, but trying to get really clear on what kind of seminar you're presenting also helps the host know who to allow to sign up for that seminar, right? So now we're kind of getting into what you can do as a seminar host, which is a completely different conversation. So I'm gonna wrap this puppy up. All right, yeah, I think that about covers it. What do you guys think? Probably next week, I think we're going to talk about like some more of these student expectations, how to be a really good student, how to make the most out of your group classes and weekly classes. So schedule the talk seminar hosting. Well, I might as well. If you guys want to hear it, I'll talk about it because, whew, I mean, I'll talk about these things all the time. You guys are so welcome. I'm happy to share my experiences, and I'm thrilled that anyone can learn from something that I went through. It's amazing to me. All right. So I will see you guys next year to talk about being the bestest student you can be and to be the teacher's pet, because I had 250 or whatever, however many I had. I had so many teacher's pets. They were all the best. So we can talk about how to do that next week, next year. Crazy. I'll see you guys then.